Laura Loomer may be the most influential unelected member of the Trump administration, and she continues to cause massive amounts of controversy. So, Loomer is sort of a self-appointed gatekeeper of loyalty to Donald Trump. She had long been sort of a figure in the fever swamps on the far right, but she has won Trump's ear, and she has shown that her ability to ferret out what she believes to be examples of disloyalty to Donald Trump among people either in his administration or up to be in his administration is very, very effective. There is a quote from Loomer in a new profile done by The Atlantic's Michael Shearer, a former colleague of mine at the Washington Post, that really, even for Loomer, I thought was a little much. So Shearer mentions to Loomer in an interview that what she is doing in terms of like trying to make sure every single person in the Trump administration has always expressed total and complete loyalty to President Trump is not dissimilar to what Wisconsin Senator Joe McCarthy did in the early 1950s when he sought to raise the idea that communists were everywhere in the Truman administration. To which Loomer says, and I quote, "Joseph McCarthy was right. We need to make McCarthy great again. Joseph McCarthy was right. We need to make McCarthy great again." Now, let me quickly do a bit of a history lesson on Joe McCarthy. So McCarthy was a guy who was a Democrat, became a Republican, wins a Republican primary in 1946 over Bob La Follette. And in the early 1950s, actually in 1950, he becomes a much bigger deal because that year he's in Wheeling, West Virginia, speaking to a group. And he says that he has 205 names, specific names of people working within the Truman administration who are known card-carrying communists. Now, by 1953, McCarthy, and he had been on this anti-communist campaign for several years at that point, became chairman of something called the Senate Permanent Committee on Investigations, where he used that platform to conduct what he took to be ways to out communists within the administration and the broader government, and that eventually included the army and the military. In 1954, those hearings were televised, and the reason that happened is because Senate Republicans thought that McCarthy was a kook, and they wanted to sort of expose him. In those hearings, very famously, the counsel representing the army told McCarthy, "Have you no decency, sir?" Right? This is sort of the defining quote of the Red Scare of the idea that communists had infiltrated everywhere. The Senate censured McCarthy 67-22 shortly after that, and then McCarthy sort of disappeared. He actually died very rapidly after that. 1957, he was dead at the age of 47 from a liver issue. So, but that period of time is broadly seen, I think, by historians as a shameful time in the United States. That while there were communists in the country, and maybe even a few in the government, that what McCarthy did was deeply irresponsible, just accusing everyone who disagreed with him of being a communist and getting them blackballed from government, from Hollywood, et cetera, et cetera. So that gets us back to Loomer, who again told The Atlantic, Joseph McCarthy was right. We need to make McCarthy great again. Now, I want to get more into why I think that matters and more into Loomer in a minute. Before I do that, I want to make a pitch to you, which is simple. I hope that you become a subscriber to this channel for two reasons, two words: independent and authentic. I am independent from big media. No corporate legacy ties anymore to me, although I used to work in them. I don't anymore. I've left. Second, I'm independent from the two political parties. I'm telling it like I see it. I am not beholden to either party, and I will never pull punches. Second, authentic. I am always going to give you my honest opinion, whether or not that is going to get me more subscribers or cost me subscribers. I'm not in this to make money or to please one side or the other. I'm always going to tell you like it is. Sometimes you agree, sometimes you don't agree, and that's the point. Okay, let's go back to Loomer. So Laura Loomer is someone who, as I said earlier, has sort of been kicking around in Republican conservative politics for a long time. She's run for the House twice, both times unsuccessfully. She's also pulled stunts like she ran on stage at Shakespeare in the Park in New York City to protest the way that Julius Caesar was being portrayed like Donald Trump. She is someone who is a conspiracy theorist as it relates to 9/11. She said it wasn't, she has been quoted as saying it's an inside job. She is someone who has expressed a number of Islamophobic sentiments in the past. She said that if Kamala Harris got elected in 2024, she was worried the White House would smell like curry. You get the idea. Loomer is so controversial that Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is sort of the face of controversy in the MAGA movement, at least in Congress, has sort of disowned Loomer. Loomer and Greene are in the midst of a very public and long-running feud that, interestingly enough, according to Greene, goes back to when Loomer ran for Congress in 2022 in Florida. So this is something that Marjorie Taylor Greene told Megyn Kelly this week about her relationship with Laura Loomer. I'm gonna quote her. So she says, the second time Loomer decided to run, she jumped the district and wanted to run against Daniel Webster, who is actually a conservative Republican. And I said, hey, Laura, I don't think you should run against Daniel Webster. I don't think you can beat him. Why don't you jump to another district where there's an open seat and you'll have a much better shot? Well, she refused, Greene went on to say about Loomer. She said no, she would not listen to anybody. So I said, I can't get involved. I'm not going to endorse against him. I'm going to stay out. Well, she was furious at me, and then everything kind of plummeted from there. Okay, so too controversial and too partisan, I don't know, for Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, that's a real road. And yet, I think it's really important to note this. Laura Loomer is not some right-wing, cast out. She's not. In fact, she has more influence now. As I said, she may be the single most influential unelected or unappointed person in the Trump administration. And that's because Donald Trump listens to her. When she does these opposition research things into people who either want to serve or are currently serving in the Trump administration and gets this information in front of Trump or Trump's senior advisors, he acts. I want to read a paragraph from the Atlantic story about how many people Laura Loomer has excised from the Trump administration in the first 6 months. Here we go. In just the first 7 months of Trump's second presidency, Loomer successfully lobbied Trump to end Secret Service protection for Joe Biden's children. She has pushed the president to fire 6 members of his National Security Council, remove 3 leaders at the National Security Agency, ended an academic appointment at West Point, fired the director of the National Vetting Center at the Department of Homeland Security, dispatch an assistant U.S. attorney in California, and remove a federal prosecutor in Manhattan. After Trump's intel chief stripped 37 current and former national security officials of their security clearance this Wednesday, she claimed credit for first labeling 29 of them threats to Trump. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, she clearly has a direct line to Donald Trump, and not just a direct line, but when she highlights these people, he gets rid of them. There's a direct correlation. I guess the Trump people would say like, oh, well, we were already worried about that person or what, but there's a direct correlation. So in a lot of ways, what Loomer is doing is not dissimilar to what Joe McCarthy did. She believes that, the deep state, which by the way is a concept Donald Trump has bought into and publicizes, that the deep state is everywhere, that these people, anyone who has not always been with Donald Trump 100% of the time should not serve in government. It doesn't matter whether it was a single tweet or a slight disagreement with Trump on something, anything is disqualifying, which was McCarthy's point too. And by the way, McCarthy and Loomer both traffic in fear. One of the things that McCarthy did was he created this element of fear within the government that even if you were accused, even if you hadn't done anything, you weren't a communist, you would be labeled that way. And that would make you unpalatable. Loomer does that too. Even if you didn't say something or what you said are years and years and years in the past, I think there is a concern there from people who either are in the administration or could serve in the administration that she is going to find you and out you. And honestly, I think Loomer rejoices in that. She says, good. We shouldn't have anyone who isn't a Trump person full on all the time in there. But it is amazing to me that someone with Donald Trump's ear, someone who has a direct line to this president, is admiringly talking about Joe McCarthy. And it should shock you too. This is not a comparison anyone should revel in, given McCarthy's role in history. And yet, here we are. As I said before, I hope you become a subscriber, independent and authentic. I always will promise you to be those two things. I am also hoping that you like and comment on this video. That helps me grow my community and grow my broader audience to people who aren't already subscribers. Last thing, tell someone you see at the grocery store, or you see at your mahjong or bingo or wherever you see people. Say, hey, this guy Chris Cillizza is doing some interesting stuff in the political space. Check him out. Thanks. Everybody take care.